Well, folks, week 6 of the college football season is behind us, and I feel like we're in a season of the biggest loser here. Who is the biggest loser of week number 6? This is outrageous what we're seeing. I told you this was going to be a lot like 2007, and here we are right now with talking about who is the biggest loser of week number 6. And I'm going to tell you, there's a lot to choose from. I don't even know if I can keep it to 5 thoughts this week in college football because we got Loserville everywhere we look. And let's get started on it. So gather around, grab a drink, and let's get into this crazy wacko week of week 6 of the college football season. Thought 1 on week 6 of the college football season. All right, let's start with the biggest loser of the week. And this is really tight, folks. There's a lot of losers out there, but we got to give it up to the Penn State Nittany Lions. That's right. The Penn State Nittany Lions are now the biggest loser of week number 6. This is just absolutely pathetic. Do you know that Penn State didn't stop the UCLA offense on one possession of the game until when UCLA went for that ridiculous 4th down? They almost could have cost themselves the game with that. I would have punted in that position and made Penn State go much further than what they did. Luckily for them, Penn State sucks and couldn't move out. But Jim Knowles couldn't stop the UCLA offense on one possession up until that last possession of the game where, well, not the last possession. The last possession is when UCLA took the safety. But the second to last possession where they couldn't stop them. The only time UCLA didn't score was when they missed a field goal. This is Jim Knowles' defense, folks. We at Ohio State, yes, the Buckeyes here, are so happy Jim Knowles is gone. From the outside looking in, you think Jim Knowles was a great defensive coordinator. But we all know last year after the first Oregon game, Jim Knowles was put in his place by Ryan Day, and that defense was changed dramatically, and you saw what happened. Then Jim Knowles leaves in a controversial way, whatever. He takes the job at Penn State. He goes over there. They don't play good defense. Jim Knowles, his defensive structure is not that great, folks. And we're seeing what Matt Patricia's doing. Remember, the Buckeyes lost, 8 starters on defense? They got 3 returners, and they're putting out top defense. Look at 3 points now. We're averaging like 5 points a game given up here on defense. And Jim Knowles is over here giving up possession after possession after possession of scores to UCLA. And don't give me this. We weren't sure what they were going to do. They weren't going to do anything if you didn't let them. And there you are, letting them score on every single possession up until the last one. And the only reason they didn't score on the one was because they missed the field goal. You didn't stop them. And Drew Aller, I mean, seriously, can you give this guy something to work with here? He can't be as bad as you're making him look here in Penn State. Yes, that's you, James Franklin. You got no receivers. Pena was great last year at Syracuse with Kyle McCord, but he goes to Penn State, and he's an absolute disaster over there. This is an absolute shit team, and let me tell you, they're going to lose 2 more games, potentially 3. I think they very well could lose to Rutgers too at the end of the season, but they're not going to beat Indiana. They're not going to beat Ohio State, and damn well they're probably not going to beat Nebraska or Rutgers. This team could lose 5 or 6 games. This is how bad this has gotten in Happy Valley. Not so Happy Valley. That's right. Good thing they got a great volleyball team coming off of a national championship last year. But the bottom line here is Penn State is the biggest loser of the week. It is just absolutely horrendous that James Franklin let the Oregon Ducks beat them 2 weeks in a row, and that's what happened, folks. Oregon Ducks came back and beat them twice because they put them into a place where they couldn't go and beat the UCLA Bruins. Hell, there wasn't enough fans in the stands of UCLA to rush the field. I'm going to post a video about what I saw later in the week about the little kid rushing the field and the security guard couldn't tackle him or get him off the field. It was hilarious. The little kid and his dad are running out there, like two people running on the field, and the security guard couldn't stop them. Why would you want to stop them? It was just absolutely tremendous that UCLA didn't have enough fans in the stands to rush the field because, you know what? The truth of the matter is UCLA knows they're a better program than what they are being portrayed out here in real life. And, you know, they're going to have better standards. And yeah, they beat Penn State, but we still suck. So we're not going to rush the field. Bottom line is Penn State is an absolute disaster. This running back duo, which we thought was going to be the best running back duo coming in this year in the country, just not there. And Drew Aller, again, I just don't see the skill set that, at least with what they're putting him in, it just doesn't have it, folks. He just doesn't have the skill set to be a great quarterback at Penn State with what they're giving him. Now, maybe he could be if he had Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate and, you know, Ryan Williams and other things, but I still don't think that would be the case. So there you go. The biggest loser of week 6 has to go, at least so far, to the Penn State Nittany Lions. Thought 2 on week 6 in college football. Let's talk about the second biggest loser, I guess, is what we'll put him here, and that's the Texas Longhorns. I mean, it is getting real evident here, folks, that Arch Manning is not good. He is just not very good. And it might be time to think about salvaging a season and putting in another quarterback just to see. What could it hurt? I mean, you could lose, but you're losing now. And quite frankly, the Gators, I've been telling you, this Gator defense is good. And they sacked Arch Manning 6 times yesterday and 7 tackles for loss. It's a very challenging defense to play. But the bottom line is it wasn't Florida's defense yesterday that beat the Texas Longhorns. It was the Texas Longhorns' ability to move the ball, ability to make catches, ability to make throws. Wisner had 11 yards rushing, I think. It was a long of 5. That means in the other carries, he had 6 yards. It just wasn't a very productive day for Texas, which, quite frankly, I told you it was going to be the case because going into the swamp is hard. And going and beating Florida at any time in the swamp can be challenging, especially for SEC teams. Yes, you might have an out-of-conference team like USF jump up and beat you, but when it comes to conference games, it's much tougher to beat the Gators in the swamp. They know what they're getting with these teams, and you know what they knew? They knew that Arch Manning wasn't that good. We could actually let receivers run free in the secondary, and he can't hit them anyways. So I don't know what Steve Sarkisian's going to do down there in Texas. But the truth of the matter is he's still got to go to Georgia. He's got to play Oklahoma next week. He's got Texas A&M coming up on the schedule at the end of the year. I mean, this is another team much like Penn State. This could be a 5-loss football team this year, folks. Could you imagine if Penn State and Texas both lost 5 football games, considering where everyone had him coming into the season? Yes, me included. I had Penn State number 2, right behind Clemson. Dumb move. And number 3 was Texas. And here we are. And I had number 4, Ohio State. Clearly, I was unbiased in putting Ohio State number 4 with those 3 teams ahead of them. And here I am, look like a fool because these teams are the biggest losers. And Penn State and Texas at this moment are just absolutely diabolical in how bad they really are. And it's not going to get pretty for Texas here if they don't come up with something. And the question is, the only thing to come up with, in my opinion, at this point, is to try something new. And that new is not Arch Manning. Because I can't believe, what happens if this kid goes in and loses 5 games this year? What do you do next year? going into the season? Are you just going to bring Arch back and say, hey, we're going to try it again and see if he's any better? But the truth of the matter is, I'm not saying you got to bench him for the season. I'm saying is maybe in a couple of these series where he's not playing well, you put the other guy in just to give him a spark, because what you're doing now is not working. It's not going to work, and Arch Manning is not effective. Those 2 sacks that he took, I think it was somewhere in the middle of the fourth quarter on back-to-back plays. It was just absolutely horrendous what you saw there. I mean, he's just holding on to the ball too long, folks. So the bottom line here is the biggest loser of week number 6, number 2 biggest loser of week number 6, because no one can be the biggest loser above Penn State, is going to be the Texas Longhorns. And the question is the Texas Longhorns going to be the biggest loser next week when they play Oklahoma? Yeah, Oklahoma has a backup quarterback in, but let me tell you, that defense is still very strong. And I would put Oklahoma's defense up against Florida's defense in a defensive struggle every day of the week so far. And let me give it up to the Florida Gators real quick. We're talking about the biggest losers, but I knew the Florida Gators coming off of that bye week would not play as bad as they had played the previous 2 weeks, and give it to them. They came out. DJ Lagway finally looked somewhat effective. He had a good game, but he wasn't what I thought he'd be at the beginning of the season. But let's give it to him. Clap it up for DJ, because DJ had a really productive game in a fashion that we hadn't seen this year. So, and I was really high on DJ Lagway. I had him as a Heisman Trophy front runner. But the bottom line is here, now we got the Gators traveling over to Texas A&M. Texas A&M struggled for a little while with Mississippi State until they got it rolling yesterday. But the bottom line here is, give it up to the Gators. Great game. I knew you guys were going to win, or at least I knew you'd keep it in within 6.5 points, and I was right, and you helped me out there. So great job, Gators. And the biggest loser, number 2 of week 6, is the Texas Longhorns. Thought 3 on week 6 in college football. I'm going to give the biggest loser, number 3 here. I'm going to give it to the Wisconsin Badgers, man. I mean, seriously, Luke Fickell, this is just getting pretty sad. You come out in this game against Michigan yesterday, and you control that ball in that first series. You walk down, you punch that ball in for a touchdown. You make this thing look like, oh, all of a sudden, you know, on a pretty lackluster noon game lineup, all of a sudden, you know, maybe Wisconsin can get some life here at home against Michigan and da-da-da-da-da. But the truth of the matter is, after that drive, I don't know what I saw out of that offense, but it was just absolutely pathetic. I mean, seriously, you cannot run the ball against Michigan up the middle continuously and think you're going to get yardage. Look at the play call, or the play box score on the play breakdown here. 2-yard run up the middle, 1-yard run up the middle, 1-yard run up the middle, punt. This was a punt, touchdown, punt. End of the game, we decide we're going to do something, field goal. And the bottom line here is there, Luke Fickell, he's a Buckeye man. I love him. I got an autographed picture of him right up there. But the truth of the matter is, this is not the right fit for Luke Fickell. Luke Fickell was great at Cincinnati, and I think he needs to find a home again in a spot like Cincinnati where he can be more competitive, but he's just not playing Wisconsin football, folks. And Wisconsin football is special in a way that's different from other places, because they know they've always had, hey, we're not going to get the greatest of talent against the Big Ten. We're always going to be behind Ohio State and Michigan, but we can come up with big hog mollies, and we can go out and we can find great running backs, and we can put those two things together with an average productive quarterback that's not going to make a lot of mistakes, and we can be in games, and our defense and our running game could beat you. I can tell you many a times that the Wisconsin running game and defense beat the Ohio State Buckeyes over the years, and guess what? They're just not there. They're not playing Wisconsin football, in my opinion, and I've been watching Wisconsin football for a long, long damn time. And I can tell you that this is not Wisconsin football. It's never going to be Wisconsin football, and they need to get someone back in Wisconsin to play Wisconsin football, because that's the way Wisconsin wins football games, much like in Nebraska. But that's a whole nother story. But we're talking about Wisconsin here, and the biggest loser, again, is Luke Fickell. He's just not playing the right type of football in Wisconsin, and he's just not getting it done. He needs to get something changed there that can make this program back to the respectability that it deserves. And yes, I say deserves. Wisconsin is solid tradition, most expect, since Barry Alvarez, but the bottom line here is Wisconsin fans deserve better here, and Luke Fickell's just not giving it to them. And that game yesterday, and those play calls, and those chances that they took, and it just was terrible, and I feel bad for them. But again, give it up to Michigan. They went in there and, they didn't play a great football game either, but still pulled out a win. And the bottom line here is that Wisconsin is just all of a sudden the bottom barrel of the Big Ten. And quite frankly, they couldn't have beat that UCLA team that beat Penn State yesterday. I can promise you that. So we're going to see where they go here with Luke Fickell there. And I like Luke Fickell a lot. Trust me, I'm not dogging on Luke Fickell. I'm just saying that I am dogging on Luke Fickell because it's not the right fit for Luke Fickell in Wisconsin. That's the bottom line here, is let's get Luke Fickell into a place that he fits better and gives him a chance to win, and let the Badgers get back to doing what they do best, which is run, control, offense with big-time tailbacks and an offensive line that pushes you around, and we'll play good enough defense to get you into a 24-21 game, and we'll come out on top of those games just enough to keep us really happy here in Madison, Wisconsin. Biggest loser of week number 6, number 3 edition, Wisconsin Badgers and Luke Fickell. Thought 4 on week 6 in college football. Let's stay here in Ohio with the Ohio Bobcats as the 4th biggest loser here of the week 6 college football season. Yes, now they did go on the road to Indiana, so they weren't here in Ohio, but it is the Ohio Bobcats. And the bottom line is here, folks, the Ohio Bobcats laid an egg yesterday on the road at Ball State against a 1-3 football team. You're a team that's controlling your destiny in the MAC. Not that you're going to make a playoff run, but who knows what could end up happening at the end of the year. You could get a very solid bowl game, and you just went on the road to Ball State and just totally just laid an egg. This was a football team that shoulda, coulda, woulda, maybe almost won at Rutgers, and played Ohio State, quite frankly, pretty solid for almost 3 quarters. 2.5 quarters, maybe almost 3, in the shoe just a few weeks ago. And to go on the road, Navarre, just was not a good performance here by the Ohio Bobcats, and it's really disappointing to see them go on the road and lose to Ball State. Just not a great football team. And the Ohio Bobcats here, like I said, they had a lot in front of them. We have Toledo, who I thought was going to be great, is just okay dokey. Buffalo, who I thought was going to be the other team, is just okay dokey. And you have Ohio sitting here like, hey, man, we got a real, we should have won at Rutgers. We played tough against Ohio State. We got out of those games, and we beat West Virginia at home in a big game in Athens. And the bottom line is here, you just go out, you lay a damn egg on the road at Ball State and really put a real difficult road ahead of you now to play for the MAC championship. And that's what you're playing for in the MAC, is the MAC championship, and the best bowl that you can get to in a warmer environment for the MAC. So bottom line here is, the Ohio Bobcats are the number 4 biggest loser of week number 6. Thought 5 on week 6 in college football. All right, let's talk about another loser, and I just can't imagine how Diego Pavera feels today after he was practicing his little kneel down victory formation before the Alabama game. I could have been throwing passes. I could have been handing off the balls, getting some practices. But no, I'm going to practice the victory formation here at Alabama before we play the game and show you what a loser I am. That's right, Diego. That's a loser move, and you lost the game. And quite frankly, yeah, you had 2 touchdown drives, but this was not a very good football game for Vanderbilt. This just shows you this is what Vanderbilt is. And I don't care if they got a little quarterback with a big mouth running around trying to make plays. They are not going to beat Alabama again for the next 20 years. You can mark it on your calendar. Yes, I said it here on October 4th, whatever the hell day it is. Vanderbilt won't beat Alabama for 20 more years. That is the truth of the matter. And Diego can run his mouth all he wants. He's going to get his mouth shut down in the next few weeks here in the SEC, because the truth of the matter is he's just not that good, folks. He doesn't make very good throws. His running ability is just okay. And the bottom line is this is freaking Vanderbilt. This is not a good program. I don't care what this coach does. This is not a better than 6 or 7 win team every year, which is great for Vanderbilt because that's what they are. But stop running around like you beat Alabama last year in a fluke game. You caught Alabama sleeping, and you're running around here practicing your victory formation before the game. It just goes to show you that you don't have any class to beat Alabama again, because no one would be stupid enough to do that in front of an Alabama team who has to win the rest of these games, folks. That's right. I said it. They have to win. They don't want to get themselves into a situation where they got 2 or 3 losses trying to get into the playoffs. This team has to win. And Diego, you are the biggest loser of week 6 in the college football season. Extra. Oh, we had another biggest loser I want to add to the group, and that will be the Maryland Terrapins. Geez, almighty, guys. What the hell were you thinking? You got a 20-0 lead over Washington here. They come down and kick a field goal. So you're up 17 points with 19 minutes to go, and you give up 3 straight touchdowns to lose 24-20 at home. Washington traveling all the way across the country. They were beat up, banged up. You had them right where you wanted them, and you totally biff it in the fourth quarter. Mike Lockley, man, we were about to give you a bunch of praise here at Todd Talks College Football, because we were shocked at what the Maryland Terrapins were doing with the freshman quarterback. Bottom line here is that this was a really good performance up until a point, and then all of a sudden it was just fell apart, and basically giving up, 24 straight points to lose the game at home. Almost all in the fourth quarter, 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, right in a row, boom, boom, boom. I think it was 7 plays, 4 plays, and 11 plays or something like that. And then Washington comes back to win it, give it up to Washington, going on the road after getting beaten up by Ohio State physically and on the scoreboard, and then turn around and get down to 20-0 and have the gumption to come back and win that football game. But the truth of the matter here is Maryland was about to make that step, get that win, that what I would have thought was a quality win, beating Washington. But you're up 20-0. You got 17 basically minutes to go in this game, or 19 minutes to go in this game, and you're let them throw up 3 touchdowns basically in a row and lose the game 24-20, and just an absolute heartbreaker for the Maryland Terrapins. So we're going to put Maryland here as another example of the biggest loser here in week 6 of college football. Extra. Well, I have not been high on Iowa State all season long, folks. That's right. I have barely had them in my cooking up something up part of my Baker's Dozen poll. I just am not a fan. I've told you on this show plenty of times, I don't think they're very explosive. I don't think that they can get into scoring games and win these games. And yesterday proved me right, because Cincinnati just absolutely dominated Iowa State. And Iowa State, well, we had our two cornerbacks out, our two starting cornerbacks. Two guys out of 11 guys. Yes, they're cornerbacks. You should have at least two deep at that position that can play relatively well. And let me tell you, Iowa State's cornerbacks, they're not that good. That's right. I said it, Iowa State. Your cornerbacks aren't that good. They're not NFL caliber cornerbacks here. Your cornerbacks are okay at best, and they could be replaced pretty much on a dime here. And you should have replaced them with at least an equal player. And guess what? The bottom line here is Cincinnati basically was running you off the field. You ended up coming back a little bit, almost making it a game at the end, getting it down to one score at 38-30. But the truth of the matter here is that Iowa State hasn't been that good all year. They're not Texas Tech. They're not Arizona State. Hell, they're not even Baylor. Baylor's a better football team than Iowa State is. And quite frankly, that's TCU, obviously Cincinnati, and BYU are all better football teams than Iowa State. That's right, I said it. There you go, Cyclones. You are not a great football team, and you showed it yesterday. And people like Joel Klatt last week were out there going, I don't know why Iowa State's not getting more praise and more things and more this and more that. Here's why, Joel Klatt, because they're not a good football team. They're an okay football team, but they're not a great football team. They're just average. They're just an average Iowa State team. If Iowa could have did anything in that game, Iowa would have beat them, and Kansas State have a meltdown pretty much, and they couldn't beat them either. Iowa State beat them, and here we are in the middle of the Kansas State meltdown year. But the bottom line here is Iowa State just isn't that good, and they're just another biggest loser here in a week full of biggest losers. All right, folks, there is the biggest loser event show of week 6. That's right. We got the biggest losers from everywhere you look. Loserville, here we go. They need to do a Fanville on Loserville this week there for Dr. Pepper, because that's where we're at. We're at Loserville here this week for a lot of these football teams. And let me tell you, another Loserville person that I just saw post a top 25 here. This is Sunday. I just saw it. RJ Young with Fox Sports. My brother, stop it. Stop it. You cannot put the Georgia Bulldogs 4 spots higher than Alabama when we all watched Alabama last week beat Georgia. You're making yourself look stupid here, my friend. You cannot put Alabama behind Georgia in a poll a week later after Georgia went and beat Kentucky. What was it, 35-14 or whatever? Yeah, it was probably 35-0 at one point. But the bottom line here is Georgia's not that impressive to be 4 spots ahead of a team that just beat them at home, who beat their 33, 34, 32, whatever it was, game winning streak. Alabama is not behind Georgia in any poll. And if you have them behind if you have Alabama behind Georgia in your poll, you shouldn't be allowed to have a poll, because this is how college football works. We play the games. You don't get to say, well, I think Georgia was better. Hell, I think Tennessee's better than Georgia, because I saw Tennessee should have won the game 3 times. But guess what? They didn't. But that doesn't mean that Tennessee's not better. But you don't rank Tennessee ahead of Georgia. That's not how it works. Alabama beat Georgia on the road, and quite frankly, didn't even need to score in the second half to beat Georgia. That's pretty impressive, my friends. And you have Georgia at 6 and Alabama at 10. Just absolute Loserville, RJ Young over there with Fox Sports. All right, folks, well, I hope you enjoyed the show today. Sorry to be so negative and so Loserville, but that's what we had here in week 6. We just got losers abound. We did have some big winners this week. Obviously, Alabama won. Obviously, Texas A&M won. Ohio State won. Notre Dame won, but I'm not going to put that as a really promising win for Notre Dame. Truthfully, I don't think Boise State's nearly the team they were. Boise State, made some mistakes in that game and gave Notre Dame some points in that game. I think that was a pretty not a great performance by Notre Dame in a game that Notre Dame needed to have a big performance. Another person who had a great performance yesterday was Blake Horvath for the Navy midshipman. That's right. He had a monster game, over 300 and some yards throwing. I think it was 339 passing yesterday, but Navy also let Air Force hang in way too close at like 34-31, but a big game for the Hilliard native here, Blake Horvath there at the Navy midshipman. So, bottom line is we're going into next week, week number 7, and boy, do we got some terrific games coming up. We got Ohio State on the road at Illinois, which could be spooky as we're getting into October. We've got Indiana going to Oregon. We got, I think, Northwestern and Penn State. That's going to be tricky up for Penn State. We've got some big games in the SEC next week. I don't know. I think they may have just scheduled them, but we should have 3 pretty big night games. And we got Oklahoma and Texas. So we've got a lot of awesome games coming up next week. But it's probably going to be a lot like we saw this week, folks. People just can't play week after week after week and play at an upper level, and they're just faltering in front of us, and that's what we're seeing. There's only a few teams so far that really look like the real deal. We'll see where they go from here. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to give a little shout out to old Florida State there. Man, I thought you guys were going to pull that off. Maybe at home, coming off of a loss. But, old Tommy boy there, he likes to talk a lot of shit like Diego. And he didn't, live up to the billing either. He let Miami jump all over him and then try to come back at the end. But we still got him within the 6.5 points that we did the alternative spread with. So very good for that. All right. Well, remember, gather around in ALTT. We'll see you on Tuesday for the Baker's Dozen release. That's right. That's the best poll in college football. And we'll do our weekly predictor show on Thursday. So I hope you enjoy the show. We'll see you next week.